so I'm Kitty from the Lessonspace. I'm here with my colleague Jordan, and in this video we're going to show you a demo of how to teach an English lesson using the Lessonspace. So let's get started. So before we get started, my background is a little noisy, so I'm going to turn on advanced noise cancellation in the setup menu. I can ask my student to do the same thing if their background is noisy. I can also blur my background if I don't want my students to see what's behind me. First of all, I'm going to go ahead and rename the whiteboard to say food vocabulary, because that's the topic we're working on. I'm also going to right click and disallow tab to be closed to make sure my student doesn't delete the tab that we are working on. So in this ESL exercise, we're going to learn food vocabulary, and we are also going to put the foods into the correct fridges. So for that, I'm going to need another fridge. So I'm going to click on this and duplicate the fridge that we already have here. So I'm also going to change the video layout so that this fits into our whiteboard better. So the third fridge I'm going to call meat, because that's our third category that was missing. So before I ask my student to grab the food and put to the correct fridge, I'm also going to upload another resource because I realized I forgot to add one more food to the list. So I'm going to hit insert resource, and then in my personal resources, I can find this picture of a cheese. So I'm just going to add it and put it to the end of our list. Okay, so now I'm going to ask my student to put the foods into the correct fridge. Cool. Awesome. That's perfect. So my student did a very good job, so I'm going to reward them with a confetti before moving on to our next exercise. Perfect. Okay, now we're going to move on to a document tab. So I'm going to click on this next tab that we have here, which is a story. So we're going to work with a story and then a grammar exercise. So we're going to read the story with my student. So I'm going to ask my student to read the story before we move on to the exercises.
Cool. So Inspector Robert Jones is a detective. He lives near a library. Inspector Jones is in the library now. He is talking to Miss Green. Miss Green is the librarian.
Okay, perfect. So now that we've read the story, I'm going to ask Jordan to type in the answers to some of the grammar questions that we have, starting with number 1. Is Robert Jones a detective?
Okay, yes, Robert Jones is a detective.
Okay, great. Okay, so now that all the questions are answered, I'm going to go ahead and correct one of the answers that are incorrect. So my student says, no, she cannot, but in the story, we know that yes, she in fact can help the inspector. So I've underlined the incorrect answer, and I'm just going to go ahead and correct, saying yes, she can. There we go. So I'm going to highlight the correct answer. Because in this story, Robert Jones says, yes, you can. Yes, she can help the detective. So in case I want to reuse this document next week, what I can do is add another story or add new text on top of the page, maybe separate it with a horizontal line, change the date, and perhaps add the different story so that we can work on new stuff with my student. Great, so now let's move on to an ESL worksheet that I'm going to upload to a whiteboard. So I've already added it to my resources, so I'm going to go ahead and search for it in my resource drawer. There we go, so that's a PDF that I'm going to upload. I'm going to upload it into the current whiteboard tab, import, and so there it is on my whiteboard. I'm going to lock it just in case my student wants to delete it, he can't. So for this listening activity, I'm going to open a YouTube video that I've already added to the chat so that my student can reference it later. I'm going to share my screen, share a Chrome tab, choose the YouTube video, share tab audio as well, so that my student can hear what we're going to listen to. So when you start sharing your screen, it will automatically present, but we're going to focus on the audio rather than the video. So I'm going to hit stop presenting. I'm going to start the audio so that my student can listen to the listening activity, and he will need to check the information that the speaker speaks about. Let's start the audio.
So be it. If I have to tell that person I can't go out drinking with him anymore, so be it, because that's not what I value. Anything or anyone that is taking me further away from my dreams has to go.
Cool, perfect. All right, that's great. Great. In this next exercise, we're going to focus on vocabulary. So the task is to match the words with the definitions. My student can use a draw tool or a line tool to connect the words with the correct definition. Okay,
Is that
great
correct?
job. Yeah, that's correct. Okay, fantastic. All right, in this last exercise of this worksheet, I'm going to use a timer, which you can find in the top right corner of your space. The task for my student will be to discuss this statement in under 5 minutes. After the 5 minutes is up, I'm going to stop him and give some feedback on whatever he said. So let me set the timer. I'm going to set custom time for 5 minutes, and I'm going to hit start, and my student can start speaking. Okay, so I'm just going to cancel that timer. The last thing I'm going to show you is how we track homework from week to week with my student. So I have a homework tab dedicated to giving and receiving the homework from my student. So from some time ago, he's already uploaded the homework here, which I've made some corrections in. And so for this week, the new homework you can find on top of the page. Next week, if we meet again, I'm going to give some other homework to my student, which we can all log here on this page.